There is one certainty in life, something that no one can escape, no matter how powerful, wealthy, or intelligent they may be. It is the one experience that unites every human being, the final chapter of every story ever written, death. But have you ever wondered what it actually feels like to die? For centuries, humanity has feared death, yet at the same time, we are endlessly fascinated by it. We see it in myths, in religious texts, in movies and literature. Some fear it as an absolute end, an abyss of nothingness. Others believe it is merely a doorway to something greater, whether that be an afterlife, reincarnation, or even a higher state of consciousness. But despite all our curiosity, one truth remains: no one truly knows. Or do they? Throughout history, thousands of people have claimed to have experienced near-death experiences, moments where they were clinically dead, yet somehow came back. Their stories often include visions of a bright light, an overwhelming sense of peace, or even encounters with lost loved ones. But is there a scientific explanation for these experiences? Or are they glimpses of something beyond our understanding? Modern science has given us incredible insights into what happens to the body as it dies. The heart slows, the brain flickers like a dying flame, and our perception of time itself begins to warp. Some report a feeling of detachment, as if floating outside their own body, watching from a distance. Others describe a deep, calm stillness, a moment of absolute clarity before everything fades away. But for some, death is not peaceful at all. It is filled with fear, pain, and an overwhelming sense of helplessness. And yet, even though death is something that will happen to every single one of us, most of us spend our lives avoiding the thought of it. We distract ourselves with work, entertainment, and daily routines, pushing the reality of our mortality into the background. But what if, instead of fearing death, we tried to understand it? What if, by confronting the inevitable, we could learn how to truly live? So, let me ask you, what do you think happens when we die? Do you believe in an afterlife, reincarnation, or is it all just nothingness? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you find this topic as fascinating as I do, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us explore more of life's biggest mysteries. Now, let's begin our journey into the unknown. Death is not an immediate event, but a biological sequence, a gradual unraveling of the intricate systems that sustain life. It begins long before the heart stops beating, manifesting first as a slowing of metabolic processes, a decline in organ function, and a reduction in consciousness. The body, in its final moments, moves toward an irreversible state, where cellular activity ceases and decomposition begins. As death approaches, whether from illness, injury, or natural aging, the body exhibits clear signs of deterioration. Oxygen becomes scarcer as breathing slows and weakens, sometimes leading to a pattern known as Cheyne-Stokes respiration, irregular breathing marked by deep gasps followed by prolonged pauses. The lack of oxygen affects the brain first, altering perception, dulling pain, and eventually causing unconsciousness. The person may appear distant, staring blankly or murmuring incoherent thoughts. As neural activity becomes increasingly disorganized, the heart, a tireless engine throughout life, begins to falter. When it can no longer pump blood efficiently, circulation slows, and extremities grow cold and pale due to a lack of oxygen supply. In some cases, the heart may enter a chaotic rhythm before stopping altogether. Without oxygenated blood, vital organs quickly shut down. The brain, being the most oxygen-dependent organ, is among the first to succumb. Within seconds of cardiac arrest, brain activity diminishes, and awareness is lost. Despite the cessation of consciousness, some cellular functions persist briefly. The brain may exhibit residual electrical activity for several minutes, leading some scientists to believe that fragments of thought or perception may linger. This has led to reports from individuals who have been resuscitated, claiming to have witnessed moments from their past, floating sensations, or even visions of light. However, as energy supplies deplete and neurons cease to fire, the last remnants of awareness fade. and the biological process reaches its final stage. At this point, the body transitions from a living organism to a lifeless form, with no circulation, blood pools in lower areas, creating a phenomenon known as livor mortis, where the skin takes on a purplish hue. Rigor mortis sets in within hours, as muscles stiffen due to chemical changes in cells. Enzymes, once crucial for digestion and cellular repair, now begin breaking down tissues, marking the onset of decomposition. Bacteria that once aided digestion take over, consuming the body from within, releasing gases that cause bloating and, eventually, disintegration. Death is not a single moment, but a series of biological events, each following the next with unyielding certainty. It is a final transition, where the body relinquishes its fragile grasp on life and succumbs to the inevitable forces of nature. Near-death experiences, NDEs, are among the most mysterious and compelling phenomena reported by those who have come dangerously close to death. While science continues to search for explanations, thousands of individuals have shared their encounters with what lies beyond the brink of life. These stories, whether they stem from cardiac arrest, accidents, or medical crises, often follow similar patterns: sensations of floating outside the body, traveling through tunnels of light, encountering deceased loved ones, or feeling an overwhelming sense of peace. Are these merely hallucinations caused by a dying brain, or do they hint at something more? One of the most famous NDE accounts comes from Dr. Eben Alexander, a neurosurgeon who once dismissed such experiences as mere brain activity. That was until he himself fell into a coma due to a rare brain infection. While clinically dead for 7 days, he later described an extraordinary journey, floating above his own body, moving through a tunnel filled with music and colors beyond anything seen on Earth, and encountering a divine presence that radiated unconditional love. Despite having no brain activity during this time, he later awoke with vivid recollections, forever changing his perspective on life and death. Scott Drummond, a man who suffered a fatal accident during surgery, recounted a similar experience. After feeling himself separate from his body, he watched doctors panic as they tried to revive him. Then, he found himself in a serene field bathed in light, where a being guided him through moments of his life. As if watching a film, he felt no pain, no fear, only an indescribable sense of calm. Just as suddenly, he was pulled back into his body, waking up on the operating table, forever changed by what he had witnessed. For many, these experiences reinforce the idea that consciousness exists beyond the body. Countless individuals have reported meeting deceased relatives or friends during their NDEs, describing conversations that felt more real than waking life. Some have even returned with knowledge they could not have known otherwise, details about events that took place while they were clinically dead, verified later by witnesses. From a scientific perspective, researchers believe that NDEs may be linked to the brain's final bursts of activity before complete shutdown. Studies on dying patients have shown surges of gamma waves associated with heightened awareness moments before death. Others suggest that a lack of oxygen may trigger hallucinations, similar to those induced by certain drugs. But this does not explain why so many people, across cultures and backgrounds, describe such eerily similar experiences. Regardless of their cause, NDEs often transform those who have them. Many lose their fear of death entirely, believing they have glimpsed what lies beyond. Some develop a renewed sense of purpose, feeling they were sent back for a reason. Others struggle, unable to reconcile their experience with their previous beliefs. Whatever the explanation, these stories challenge our understanding of life, death, and what, if anything, comes next. Pain and sensation in death vary dramatically depending on the cause, the circumstances, and the physiological response of the body. While some deaths are nearly instantaneous, offering little to no pain, others are slow and excruciating, pushing the body to its absolute limit before consciousness fades. Understanding the different ways people experience pain and sensation at the moment of death allows us to grasp the biological, neurological, and psychological aspects of human mortality. One of the most feared ways to die is burning. When a person is caught in a fire, The initial moments are incredibly painful. The intense heat rapidly damages the skin, causing third-degree burns that destroy nerve endings. Ironically, after the initial agony, a person may feel less pain as the nerves are completely burned away. However, inhaling superheated air can cause internal burns in the airway, leading to suffocation as the throat swells shut. Smoke inhalation can result in unconsciousness before the flames consume the body, making it a mercifully quicker death than prolonged burning. Drowning presents a vastly different but equally terrifying sensation. The human instinct to avoid inhaling water is incredibly strong. The initial moments are filled with panic, as the body fights to surface. If submersion continues, the lack of oxygen causes immense stress on the brain, triggering a desperate urge to breathe. Eventually, the body forces a gasp, flooding the lungs with water. This moment is often described by survivors as a burning pain in the chest, similar to fire. However, within seconds, unconsciousness follows as the brain is deprived of oxygen, and death arrives soon after. A slower and more insidious way to die is from hypothermia. When exposed to extreme cold, the body prioritizes keeping the vital organs warm, redirecting blood away from the extremities. This leads to a painful, aching sensation in the hands and feet, followed by numbness. As the core temperature drops further, confusion sets in, and some victims paradoxically feel hot, leading them to remove clothing in a phenomenon known as paradoxical undressing. Eventually, the heart slows, breathing becomes shallow, and the person drifts into unconsciousness before death occurs. Contrast this with death from extreme heat, such as heat stroke. When the body overheats, it struggles to regulate its temperature. Sweating becomes ineffective, and internal organs begin to fail. Victims often experience dizziness, confusion, and nausea. As heat stroke progresses, the brain swells, causing seizures, hallucinations, and eventual unconsciousness. The body essentially cooks from the inside out, leading to a slow and painful death if left untreated. Electrocution is another cause of death with distinct sensations. When a high-voltage current passes through the body, it causes immediate muscle contractions, often making it impossible for the victim to let go of the electrical source. Pain is intense as nerves are overloaded with electrical signals, and the heart may enter ventricular fibrillation, an irregular rhythm that leads to cardiac arrest. Depending on the voltage, death can be nearly instantaneous, or prolonged if the person remains in contact with the electricity for an extended period. Poisoning and overdose deaths vary in their level of pain. Some poisons cause extreme suffering, like cyanide, which prevents cells from using oxygen, leading to convulsions, suffocation, and intense burning sensations. Opioid overdoses, on the other hand, are often painless, as they depress the central nervous system, causing a person to drift into unconsciousness before breathing stops. Carbon monoxide poisoning is another nearly painless death, as victims simply fall asleep due to oxygen deprivation before succumbing. Blunt force trauma and gunshot wounds have unpredictable levels of pain. A gunshot to a vital organ like the brain or heart can lead to instant death, while shots to non-fatal areas may cause excruciating pain before shock sets in. Similarly, blunt force trauma, such as in car accidents or falls, may cause momentary pain before unconsciousness takes over. Some victims experience a rapid shutdown of the nervous system, preventing prolonged suffering. The sensation of pain in a terminal illness, such as cancer, is often managed with medication. However, without pain relief, the progression of certain diseases can be excruciating. Cancer that spreads to the bones, for example, is notoriously painful. Organ failure can cause immense discomfort, as the body struggles against its inevitable shutdown. In these cases, medical interventions focus on reducing suffering rather than curing the disease. In cases of death by exsanguination, massive blood loss, pain depends on the speed of blood loss. If a major artery is severed, unconsciousness can occur in seconds, minimizing suffering. However, slower blood loss can cause dizziness, weakness, and cold sensations before unconsciousness sets in. One of the least painful ways to die is often considered to be from old age. The body gradually shuts down, with metabolism slowing, appetite fading, and cognitive function diminishing. Many elderly individuals pass away in their sleep, experiencing no distress as their organs cease to function. While death itself remains an enigma, the sensations leading up to it vary drastically. Science continues to explore the mechanisms of pain and consciousness at the end of life, offering insights that may one day help humanity face mortality with greater understanding and less fear. The experience of dying is deeply complex, not only from a physical standpoint, but also from a neurological perspective. In the final moments of life, the brain undergoes a sequence of changes that provide insight into what a person may experience as they transition from life to death. The study of these processes has intrigued scientists, philosophers, and spiritual thinkers alike, leading to numerous theories about consciousness, perception, and awareness in those last critical seconds. When the body begins shutting down, one of the first systems affected is the nervous system, which includes the brain. The decline in oxygen supply causes a cascade of biochemical reactions that alter cognitive function. Studies suggest that moments before death, there may be a surge of electrical activity in the brain. This phenomenon has been observed in both animal and human studies, where brain waves spike momentarily before ceasing altogether. Some researchers hypothesize that this surge is responsible for vivid experiences reported by those who have come close to dying, such as seeing a bright light, reliving memories, or feeling a profound sense of peace. As oxygen deprivation progresses, neurons in the brain begin to malfunction. At first, confusion and disorientation set in, followed by a gradual loss of conscious awareness. However, even as external responses diminish, brain imaging studies indicate that auditory processing may persist. Some people in comatose states have demonstrated neural activity in response to familiar voices or sounds, suggesting that hearing may be one of the last senses to fade. One particularly compelling aspect of the dying brain is the potential release of neurochemicals. Endorphins, which are natural painkillers, may flood the brain, inducing a sense of euphoria or detachment. This could explain why individuals who have had near-death experiences report feeling serene despite traumatic circumstances. Additionally, the neurotransmitter glutamate may be involved in generating hallucinatory experiences, further contributing to the perception of entering another dimension or encountering deceased loved ones. Memory recall is another fascinating element in the brain's last moments. Some survivors of cardiac arrest have described seeing their lives flash before their eyes. This may be due to heightened neural activity in areas of the brain associated with memory retrieval. The exact mechanism remains unclear, but some scientists believe that as neural circuits collapse, they activate stored memories in a final burst of activity. The question of whether the mind retains awareness after clinical death remains an open debate. Although the heart stops beating and respiration ceases, some studies suggest that the brain may continue functioning for a brief period. Reports from medical professionals recount cases where patients have been resuscitated and later recalled details of their surroundings during apparent unconsciousness. This suggests that consciousness might not immediately vanish upon death, but instead gradually fades as neural activity dissipates. From a physiological standpoint, brain death is considered the definitive marker of death. Unlike cardiac arrest, which can sometimes be reversed, brain death is irreversible. At this stage, there is no electrical activity in the brain, and all cognitive function ceases. The body may still exhibit reflexive movements due to residual spinal cord activity, but true awareness is no longer present. While science continues to explore the final moments of the mind, there is still much that remains unknown. Whether these last experiences hold a deeper significance beyond mere biological processes is a question that extends beyond the realm of neuroscience into philosophy and spirituality. Regardless of one's perspective, the transition from life to death remains one of the greatest mysteries of existence. We often spend much of our lives trying to avoid or deny the undeniable truth that death is a part of every human existence. Yet, what can we truly learn from death? While death is the inevitable end of every life, it is also one of the most underexplored topics in modern society. Ironically, it holds the potential to teach us profound lessons, giving us a deeper understanding of how we live. When confronted with death, could it be possible that we can actually live more fully? In this reflection, we'll explore the relationship between life and death and uncover what death can teach us about living. There is something universally profound about death. It serves as a reminder of life's fragility. The fact that death awaits us all makes us realize the preciousness of each moment. When we become aware of our mortality, we are often inspired to evaluate what truly matters in our lives. We start to realize that the trivial concerns, work pressures, societal expectations, or material pursuits pale in comparison to what really brings us fulfillment, love, relationships, and meaningful experiences. Think about the special moments in life. The first time you meet someone who becomes a lifelong partner, the joy of holding your newborn child, or the serenity of spending a quiet afternoon with loved ones. These moments, when experienced with full presence, become treasured memories. They are the things that will remain with us even as time passes and things around us change. By confronting the reality of death, we are urged to value the present, to live fully in the here and now. When we understand that life is fleeting, we may find the courage to focus on what truly matters, making our days more meaningful and intentional. Death teaches us that the time to cherish life is always now, not in the distant future or after achieving some external goal. Death also has a unique way of showing us that it is not the end of everything, but rather a part of a larger cycle. Many cultures and philosophies view death not as a termination, but as a transition, whether through beliefs in reincarnation, spiritual continuity, or the merging of consciousness with the universe. Death is seen as one phase in the continuous flow of existence. This perspective allows us to reconsider how we perceive the finality of life. Death may not signify an absolute end, but instead a transformation. The concept of life beyond death, or the persistence of energy, encourages us to view existence in broader terms, understanding that life is more than what we experience in a single lifetime. When we accept death as an inevitable part of life, it can inspire us to live with greater purpose and meaning. Often, people get caught up in achievements, accumulating wealth, or gaining recognition. However, when death is at the forefront of our thoughts, we begin to understand that what truly matters is not what we accumulate, but how we impact those around us. The legacy we leave behind, the kindness we show, the love we offer, the positive change we make, becomes more significant than our personal accomplishments. By contemplating death, we recognize the interconnectedness of life, where the relationships we build and the positive influence we have on others stand as the truest measure of a life well lived. In fact, death teaches us to embrace the imperfections of life. We often spend so much of our time seeking perfection or avoiding discomfort. But death reveals that the beauty of life lies in its transience, its fleeting nature. Life is full of challenges, moments of joy and sorrow, growth and stagnation, and each experience plays a role in shaping who we are. Death reminds us that it is not about avoiding difficulty but embracing it, knowing that every moment, whether good or bad, contributes to the richness of our existence. Moreover, the awareness of death may push us to live with greater mindfulness. We begin to recognize that each day is an opportunity to be present, to appreciate the small moments, and to connect with others. In a world that often values speed, efficiency, and achievement, death calls us to slow down, to savor, and to reflect on the beauty of being alive. At the same time, death encourages us to let go. We hold on to so many things in life: material possessions, grudges, past regrets, believing they define us or give us security. Yet death shows us that none of these things are permanent. The only constant in life is change, and eventually, all things we hold dear will fade away. By acknowledging death, we are offered the freedom to release what no longer serves us and to focus on what truly matters in the present. Death also teaches us that life is not something to be feared or avoided, but rather something to be embraced. In cultures around the world, there are rituals and philosophies that encourage people to confront death directly, not as something ominous, but as a natural part of the human experience. In doing so, They come to appreciate the fragility of life and live it with deeper appreciation, compassion, and clarity. What can we learn about life from death? Above all, we learn that life is short, and its value lies in how we live it, not in the quantity of days we have. Death brings into sharp focus the importance of living authentically, of being present in our relationships, and of pursuing what makes us truly fulfilled. It teaches us to love deeply, to forgive readily, and to embrace the impermanence of life with grace. Ultimately, the inevitability of death challenges us to rethink what it means to live. It calls us to shed the superficial distractions and focus on what gives us meaning. It reminds us that life, in all its complexity and beauty, is a precious gift, and as we journey toward the end, we may find that the key to a fulfilled life is not to avoid death, but to live fully in the face of it.